One. So Russell Westbrook's time with the Los Angeles Lakers did not go how many had hoped, especially Russell Westbrook. But credit to Russell Westbrook, he did make a lot of sacrifices. He did try his hardest to make it work, and sometimes it just isn't meant to be, right? Sometimes situations, environments, team, the chemistry just wasn't there. It was just awkward fit from day one. Russell Westbrook ends up getting traded from the Utah Jazz, and now it's just kind of this question of like, one, will Russ get bought out? And two, if he does get bought out, where is he going to land? Now, there is always the possibility that he doesn't. Maybe he sits out the rest of the season, or maybe he plays a couple spot games for Utah. He's not really in a rush. As long as he is bought out and everything's processed by March 1st, then he is good. He'll be okay. So he still has time. He could ride it through this all-star break, and then we'll see what develops. Maybe while you're watching this video, maybe we get news about it. Whatever. But nonetheless, Russell Westbrook, I do believe, can be a big impact player in the right situation for the right team. I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I think he'd still be very good. Issue was his contract, right? He's not a $47 million a year player anymore. But at the right price, I do think he is great. I mean, for the vet minimum, which is basically what he would get, I mean, I don't think there's a team in the league that would want him. It's just, again, fit, it just environment, culture. Is it something that they actually want to get into? But it's talent-wise, especially him coming off the bench, I'm sure most teams in the league would give him an opportunity. But some destinations are better than others, and there are numerous ones that have been rumored, right? The Clippers, you have the Wizards, the Bulls, and the Heat seem to be the most likely destinations. Those are the ones that keep getting brought up. Again, maybe he stays with the Jazz, but few things. One, I think he's going to want to go to a place that obviously gives him actual run, actually allows him to be in a position to maybe start or get some significant minutes. I personally think he goes to the first place that says like, hey, you could come here and start and we will keep you long term, which you can make an argument for all four of these teams. So then that just comes down to like, what place does he actually want to go to? What destination does Russell Westbrook want to play for? And which team makes more sense and actually has the fit that would suit Russell Westbrook, right? Because again, Russ isn't really a plug-and-play player, right? He's not a guy like, like a Kyrie Irving, right? Kyrie, his skill set, the ability to shoot, play on the ball, off the ball, you can put him pretty much anywhere, and you could figure it out. Well, it just comes down to like, would Kyrie buy in? Where Russ, even if he is willing to buy in, as we saw with the Lakers, he still is an awkward fit because he can't shoot. His skill set is best suited for a very specific team. So he needs to go to a place that has the best interest for him, gives him the best opportunity, but also is a team that you look around and you go, okay, well, actually, that makes a lot of sense for Russell Westbrook, right? So you need shooting, defense, a rolling big, things like that. Ways for him to have the floor spread to where he can attack and be aggressive, right? He's a guy that's going to play at the rim. So you need to be able to put him in a position to do that. And I think in the right environment, he could really thrive and really kind of make an impact on some of these teams. So starting off with the Clippers, in my opinion, I think operated under the assumption that they're getting Russell Westbrook. So if you look at all of the Clippers trade deadline moves, they are all moves that make sense if Russell Westbrook is coming, right? You heard the reports, I'm sure, of Paul George trying to recruit Russell Westbrook and how he wants Russ. Big question is, does Kawhi Leonard, right? Russell Westbrook reached out to Kawhi Leonard in the past because he wanted to play with them, and Kawhi Leonard basically told him to shove sand. He didn't even respond to him, if I'm not mistaken, and then kind of went and talked to Paul George. So is that something Kawhi's like, yeah, let's make that happen. That's what I want. Would they even care? If, like they might look at it as like, Kawhi, you barely even play. But in reality, I do think that, if Kawhi doesn't want it to happen, I don't think it'll happen. But if Kawhi is on board, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the one thing that they need more than anything is a point guard. Yes, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, They're the ones that are going to have the ball 90% of the time, but neither of those guys are really point guards, right? Kawhi Leonard is essentially a black hole when it comes to the game of basketball. And Paul George, yes, he can play make a little bit, but he's not like a point guard. They need, I mean, even beyond Russ, they need like a Ricky Rubio, prime Rajon Rondo, like a pass first, orchestrating type point guard, not really a scoring guard. But Russ, I think, is the closest best thing out there. I think that the Clippers make a ton of sense. I think you can make the argument the Clippers is the best destination for Russell Westbrook because they have the shooting, they have the floor spacing, they have the bigs now. Plumlee, I think, would just eat with Russell Westbrook. I mean, look at what Russ was doing with, Thomas Bryant and Winning Gabriel and guys like that. Like, imagine, I mean, he turned Steven Adams into an elite scorer at one point. Now, I imagine what he would have with like Zoo and Plumlee. I think he'd be feasting, right? He could attack the basket, he could be aggressive, he could play his game of basketball. Question is, would they start him? Maybe. How would his fit next to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard be? That's something else. But look, I mean, he was willing to take a backseat and be the third fiddle to LeBron and AD. So is he willing to do that with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? I could absolutely see it. I think he's going to want to start, but I also think it makes sense to start him for the Clippers, right? If you're the Clippers, like the Clippers needed a point guard and traded all their point guards. It kind of was like the opposite, right? And then they just got a bunch of guys that are all the same player. Like you have Norman Powell and you went and got basically 3 more Norman Powells. It was like, what? Like what? Like why? To me, it seems like, okay, well, we're going to do this because these guys make a lot of sense if we land Russell Westbrook. So I really do think that they were operating on the idea of like Russell Westbrook's coming. Russell Westbrook's already in LA. He played for the Lakers. He just basically has to move next door. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? For both sides. It just comes down to like, will it work? But moving on to Miami Heat. Now, in my opinion, Russ is like a Miami guy, right? Hardworking, always shows up to work, hard-nosed type player. Some of Russ's decision-making and stuff might be a little frustrating for the Heat, but I think Jimmy Butler, would absolutely love him. I think Pat Riley would absolutely love him. Miami makes a lot of sense. Also, we could see a little, UCLA reunion. Kevin Love is also a front runner to land with the Miami Heat. Maybe we get a Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook reunion. That could be pretty interesting. That could be something that's pretty fun. But Kyle Lowry isn't it anymore. And they're kind of stuck with him. And so they could really use a point guard. Not just that, but you could always just play Kyle Lowry next to Russ if you had to. But having Russ with Jimmy Butler, with Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, guys like that, I really do think that he would thrive and feast with them. They could use the help. They could use the scoring. I also think Miami would be okay with letting Russ kind of be Russ because they kind of need that, right? They need the fast pace. They need the guy that can just generate buckets. I think Miami, they're in a position where you can live with the bad, you live with the good type thing. And I do think Miami makes a lot of sense. Would they start him though? That I don't know. Because again, you got Kyle Lowry. So what are you doing then? Like, are you bringing Hero off the bench again, and you're going Lowry and Russ? Are you gonna bring Kyle Lowry in his contract? And you're gonna bring him off the bench? Like what would be the plan there? That's something I really think is worth the conversation. And again, I think Russ, he's going to want to go to where he could start. So if Miami doesn't offer a starting position, I think that would be at the bottom of his list. That's just my thoughts. But Miami's pretty straightforward. I think they could use him. I think he'd thrive there. I think Miami makes a lot of sense for Russell Westbrook. But Chicago, right? So the Bulls kind of feel like that team that is a point guard away from really being good, right? Lonzo Ball was supposed to be that guy, and unfortunately, that guy, who knows if he ever plays basketball again, Like, seriously, like it's crazy. He can't walk every time you hear something. It's just like, yeah, he can't move. He's still in all this pain. Uh, Sounds like doctors don't even know what's wrong with him, like what's going on, why he's still feeling pain, all that stuff. You got, Levine and DeMar DeRozan, and they're a little clunky at times. You got a good quality set. Like, you look at the roster and you're like, man, this team should be better than like an 11th seed, but they're just not. And I just think that they don't have that playmaker. They don't have that guy to kind of put it together. And they're another team, in my opinion, that feels like they need like a Ricky Rubio more than a Russell Westbrook. Lonzo Ball, I think, makes a ton of sense for this team. And I think that's kind of what Chicago's always kind of held on hope for, right? Like, if Lonzo comes back, he's the guy we need to put it all together. Because that's kind of how this roster looks, right? It's just really clunky at times. But maybe Russell Westbrook could come in. You could start him. Makes sense, right? Go with like him, Levine, DeMar. You could go with like Patrick Williams and like Nicola, right? There you go. There's starting five. Looks good. Perfect, right? And you still have like depth off the bench. You still have some size off the bench. Still, you'd still be in a good position. They would have like, you have a floor stretching big, so you could open up the paint to where Russ could thrive. Also, I think Vu would really benefit from Russ. I think Russ would be able to make his life a lot easier. You'd have those pick and pop guys, so you could run some sets with them. I do. I think that I don't think that they have the shooting depth that would make Russ really thrive, if I'm being honest. But I do think that they have enough to where Russ could be very helpful and effective for this team. And they need it badly. Chicago needs that burst of energy. And Russ being a one-man fast break, I think would help Chicago tremendously get out on the run. You could even put him with some of the young guys and just kind of run some young and gun type sets and stuff. I do. I really think Russ could make a lot of sense for Chicago. I don't think it's the best fit. Like, I think them and the Heat aren't the best fit. I think that he makes a lot of sense for both of those teams. But I think the Clippers make a better fit just because of the roster and the team that they would have around Russ. And I think the next team we're going to talk about makes the most sense. But Chicago and the Heat, I think, are kind of, they could use Russ, but how well will it work? It's kind of how I feel. But the Wizards, my opinion, this is the team that I thought he would go to. I've said it on this channel. I said it on my Laker channel, as it stands Lakers. And I've said it on live streams. I said it everywhere. People ask me, where do I think Russell Westbrook ends up after a buyout if he were to get traded? Well, now he's traded. Now he's bought out. I think the Wizards make the most sense, even more than the Clippers. I think the Clippers have more talent and on paper look like a better fit for him. But one, he was really good for Washington. 22-point triple-double guy. Washington has a lot more talent now. I mean, last time, it was basically Russell Westbrook and like half a Bradley Beal. And Russ was able to take that team to the playoffs. Him and Bradley Beal got along great. Bradley Beal has done nothing but spoke highly of him ever since he left and has talked about how he'd love to play with him again. Well, this could be your opportunity. They have a great, Kristaps Porzingis would thrive next to Russell Westbrook. Thrive. They don't have a point guard, really. Monty Morris is kind of like their point guard, but he's more of a two guard than he is a point guard. They have guys like DeLon Wright, but even him, he's more of your backup than your starting. Kendrick Nunn, again, he's more of a two guard scoring guard than an actual point guard. I think Russell Westbrook makes a world of sense. I think he'd fit in beautifully. I think you got the wing depth, got the size, you got the shooting, you got everything you need. He's familiar. The fans loved him. Your star loved him. I think it's a place where he could stay long term. I think it's a place that he would like to stay long term. I think it'd be a huge win and just home run for Russell Westbrook if he went back to the Wizards. I do imagine at some point he is going to make his decision. I don't think he stays with Utah. I think it's kind of a matter of time before he decides to, okay, hey, let's get bought out. I mean, there is the argument of like, once you get bought out, then you're always going to kind of be that like, vet minimum guy. A lot of times your career, it's not perceived the way that it once was and all that stuff. But I don't really buy that. Not for Russell Westbrook. I think teams do know, like Russ could still provide. He's never going to be a $47 million guy again, but I do think he's a guy that could still get 10 to, maybe 15 million a year. And the right team, right situation. I do think he could really help teams in the right situation. I think any of these teams would be better with Russ than they are right now. I just think the Clippers and the Wizards, I think they make the most sense. I think they're the best fits for him. Although Chicago, you can make an argument he might play 40 minutes a night in Chicago. They could really use him a lot. Miami, I just like, again, what do they do with everyone else? What do they do with like Kyle Lowry? I just think Washington is probably my preferred destination for him because I just think that they have a better team than they did last time. I think he was loved there. I think Bradley Beal really liked him. I think he liked it there. I think it was just a win-win for everybody. But anyway, as always, is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Where do you want to see Russ go? Do you think he goes to any of these teams? Is there another team that comes to mind that you'd rather see him go to? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear them. So let me know down in the comments below.